Okay, now we'll call. Approve the agenda and order of business. I don't have any changes. Anybody else? Yes.
Just two grant requests not on the agenda, at least on my agenda. I think the information might be in the package, I'm not sure. And did we find it, or
The one I just said on your desk.
there's another one?
There were three, two were in the package. That
One is in the package, only one of mine is in the package.
Well, I have.
Which one's still missing? We have United Soccer, Chester Kennel Club, the Baptist Church, and the Hubbard's area Lions Club. So we're missing one still?
Chester Seaside, Artisans and Farmers Market.
Okay. I'll print that and add that.
Okay, so we're adding those two to the agenda.
Check point one on my desk as well.
Yes, a volunteer of the year. Well, I have that in my paper agenda, so I didn't know that.
I only have
Okay, well,
Right. Like Chester, Chester 5.
yeah. So that is it.
Volunteer here.
Volunteer of the year.
Oh, I'm like,
Are we good to go? Somebody want to approve the agenda tonight? Yeah, it's it, so it's but I had it all already. Second discussion, all those in favor, opposed, motion carried. Public input, I'm unaware of any, but that doesn't hold. We do have some.
Barry Redmond, 4020 Highway number 3.
Come on up here.
Come on up. Okay. Just wondering, whether we could get an update on what's happening with the longest sidewalk project in the world, and whether we can see the end of that, and maybe the end of the shoddy work that was done there, and why at the, I believe it's probably up at the end of Queen Street, they obviously ran with the concrete and finished it off with asphalt.
I know it's been a very long project and I don't know the details.
The update I know is that they're working with the contractor to come back and do some repairs on some of the work. As you mentioned, there's some areas that were not up to the standard that they were looking for. So they're working with the contractor to do some of that repair work this year, and they're still waiting to get some of the poles removed from Nova Scotia Power as well,
Right.
which has been a process. So until they get that moved, and then there were some temporary sections I understand put into until those poles are moved, so they'll have to do that repair work.
I think the poles were already moved, weren't they? Were we took up?
I'm not sure. The last update I had was.
I do see that the barriers are finally down, which I cannot understand why they were up all winter long. And if that was a safety reason, I saw lots of kids walking on the road because the sidewalks were barriered off. And I think that was a bigger hazard than having them walk on the sidewalks, even in the condition that they were in. And I hope that you will really look hard into who's going to do the next sidewalk project, because if we're thinking about doing Pig Loop Road, look at probably a 5-year project if you get back to these guys.
It was one of the longest work one done.
Yeah, it was just totally incompetent and ridiculous.
We're trying to address.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, proclamations, designations, I'm unaware of.
Yeah.
Committee report, 6.1, Random Parks. Oh, sorry, didn't approve the minutes, my fault. Somebody want to approve or approve the minutes of council March 14th? So, discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, now it's Random Parks.
So Sharon is a counselor on the Recreation Committee, but she wasn't able to attend the meeting last night, so just
Yeah, the sunny study.
That's right, that's right. So the Recreation Committee reviewed the volunteer nominations that were submitted this year, and so we were fortunate to have 8 different names submitted. So Devin Broom, Lorraine Birch, Mike Dixon, Elizabeth Heisler, Norma Hiltz, Laura Mulrooney, and Liz and Susan Crocker were all nominated this year, and so a lot of those names would be familiar to you. So a fantastic list of volunteers from the community. And one of the challenging things, we talk about this every year, any one of those individuals could have represented the municipality and represented the municipality very well at the provincial level. So yeah, so it's always a challenge. So the committee members reviewed the applications and nominations and had quite a fulsome discussion. And at the end of the day, they made a recommendation to council today to select Lorraine Birch as the volunteer of the year for the municipality of Chester. And so looking at
Has a lot, has done a lot.
so yeah, and so a lot of folks know Lorraine's name through her profession through our health center, but it's actually the nomination that came was actually through Sherbrooke Lake Camp. So in her volunteer capacity there. So that's the recommendation that the committee is looking to put forward.
We also approve Lorraine Birch as the volunteer of the year. Lorraine Birch, volunteer of the year. Seconder, discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion carried. That's one of your easiest jobs.
Yeah.
Okay. Public presentations. Fire services. Oh, yeah, 9 o'clock, okay. Well, it's all, but.
Good morning. So good morning, Mr. Mayor, or Mr. Ward, should say, and councilors and everybody else here. For those who don't know, my name is Kirk Holligan. I'm on the Fire Services Committee, along with Heather McCollum. We have a brief presentation for you this morning on the fire services budget. So there's about 4 things that we want to cover with you this morning. One, what is the Fire Services Committee? We want to talk about the annual budget process that we went through, the proposed fire rate for 24-25, and the draft fire budget. And what we'd ask is we will attempt to keep our presentation as timely as possible. And if you have questions, please ask them at the end.
Okay.
Next slide. So the Chester Fire Services Committee, just a little brief overview. The Fire Services Committee is a corporate body created by the municipality of the District of Lunenburg and the Village of Chester to oversee the volunteer fire.
Municipality of Chester, oh, sorry. I know you want me to wait for the end.
Yeah.
Municipality of Chester.
Oh, yeah.
It's not municipality of Lunenburg.
Yeah, we're very sensitive to that.
Yeah.
Municipality of the District of Chester.
Oh, I'm sorry, typo.
Okay.
Or I have it.
And the Village of Chester, sorry about that, to oversee the Chester Volunteer Fire Department. Since 1936, when the Chester Volunteer Fire Department was founded as a division of the Village Commission, the service area expanded to the municipal districts of 3, 7, and part of 1 as a service agreement with the municipality. The entire Chester Volunteer Fire Department service area, village, and the outside village pays the same tax rate. The municipal residents requested a partnership rather than a service agreement, so that the Fire Services Committee was founded as a joint venture, 50-50 owned by the village and the municipality. The committee's role is to develop the annual budget, fiscal management, and develop a 20 and 5-year capital strategy, as well as the proposed new fire station, which is currently in the design phase. Next slide. So this is just a map showing the fire service area, and to talk a little bit about the 6 members. So there are 3 members appointed by the village and 3 members by the municipality. So the members are Colin McDonald, who is the chair, Norm Countway, the vice chair, and of course myself, Kirk Holligan, as the treasurer secretary. We have Jim Barkos, Nancy Hatch, and James Robert. The committee is governed by the intermunicipal fire agreement of 2022 and revising agreement of 2023. And the village commission staff administer the committee and are directed by the committee only on fire matters, not the village commission. To talk a little bit about the budget process, it was a pretty involved process. A lot of detail went into it, and it started late last year with the fire department, the chief and the deputy chief going through the budget line by line and speaking of the relevance of some items that may have been there from prior years that aren't needed, and some of the other items that needed to be added. So we had a preliminary meeting on January 15th with the committee treasurer and the volunteer fire department clerk, and line by line discussion and detail and the rationale behind the decisions. And we had several other meetings before our annual public meeting, which was on February 15th. And then we're here today to do the final presentation to the council and village commission for final approval. So some considerations that we had when we were putting the budget together. So first of all, there are 50 members of the community on the fire department who donate their time and risk their lives every day to keep us safe in emergencies such as fires, floods, accidents, medicals, and more. They are your neighbors, they are your friends, and they even could be your family members. So why does the department needs seem to be growing? Increasing demand on our volunteers, equipment, and facility. Well, for one, our climate is changing. We all know what's happened and is happening with our climate. We can remember the floods that we had right in Chester last year with Stanford Lake and all the things that happened there. And we know about the wildfires and the droughts that have taken place with the fires last year in Shelburne and in Hammond's Plains. While they didn't directly affect us, our fire department was helping out in both of those situations. And our community is changing, and nobody knows that better than you folks around the table. Expanding the size, more homes, more traffic, and we know that in Canada, particularly in Nova Scotia, we have an aging demographic, older people, and so all levels of government are trying to influence that and bring more people. So there's a lot of growth that is happening in the area that was spurred, I guess, by the pandemic, and that's happened, and that will continue over the many years to come. Our community is changing, expanding size, more homes. We know about Stanford Lake and potential on Chester Commons, and there'll be more buildings and traffic, and the demands of life are changing. We are on 24/7. We have an aging population, family support, technology, and a lot of people have moved into the area that are working remotely. And fully half of the call-outs that the fire department gets today are medical. If you think back 10 or 15 years in the community, if the fire alarm rang once every 2 weeks, it would be, something else. Today, the call-outs could be 2 or 3 times a day. Next slide. Okay. Why should the community be concerned? These volunteers are highly trained and called upon virtually every day. There's national standards that are increasing because of, the type of fires and the type of emergencies that our department responds to are changing. You think about electric cars and the impact that that has on fighting fires or emergency situations. We need to think long and hard about the volunteers' commitment to the community with the current facilities, recruitment, retention, health, and safety. I have to say that here in Chester, we are very, very fortunate with the volunteer fire department we have. We have one of the best probably on the So Sure. And keep in mind, they are volunteers. We need to think, or without change and support, our department is limited to meeting the needs of our growing and changing community. And we need to recognize the operational needs of a modern fire department. We have high expectations of our volunteers and members of the 911. If you think about when somebody calls 911 and they think about the response, you could have the police, you could have the ambulance service show up, or you could have the firemen. And we as citizens expect the same level of professionalism, whether it's a fireman coming to your door in an emergency or a police or ambulance. But there's a big distinct difference between those three. The fire department are volunteers. The other two are paid services. And so we want to do what we need to do to make sure that our fire department can continue to meet the needs and demands of the community as we grow. Next, I want to just talk briefly about the fire rates. So our fire rate in Chester was 0.074 cents. If you look at the chart, you can see that we have the lowest rate in the area and much lower than virtually everybody. I believe the average there is about 0.144 cents. And you can see that at 0.74, we're about half of what the average would be. So in our proposed fire rate, we had many considerations. So the 5 and 20-year capital plans, apparatus and equipment, and we need 2 trucks replaced. One of them was deferred from 2021. And of course, the new fire station engineering and pre-design, which is in progress, and the estimate cost, obviously, to build it is to be determined as we go further down the road. So we need to increase reserves are needed. So maintaining the current tax rate, it would give us about 10% more revenue than last year, but it would barely keep pace with the operations of the fire department, let alone, procure equipment and the station that's needed to meet the future demands. And so the new fire rate of 0.94 allows for 187,000 more funds to be invested in reserves, 86% of them, as a matter of fact, from the rate increase. And the new fire rate would still be the lowest in the municipality. So I'm going to call upon Heather now to take you through the numbers of the budget. Thank you.
Thank you for your time this morning, councilors. So this front page is basically a total of the revenue and a summary of the expenses total. So we have a breakdown of where the different parts of the fire tax land. And then we've got the budget separated into operating, capital, and reserves. So you can see it all matches. Budgets and actuals from the previous 2 fiscal years are included for reference. The blue column is 22-23. The yellow columns are the current year, including the year-to-date budget variance, which is nearly completed, although there's quite a lot that happened in the final month. And then the orange is for this year. Okay, so note that if there's blank lines here, it indicates a line item from a previous budget that doesn't carry over into 24-25. And in the interest of time, I'm only going to comment where there's a notable change over previous years. There's numbered notes down the right-hand column, which you have a copy of all those notes in the package that you received prior, so I won't go through all of those. So administration, the increase here is for the committee's corporate requirements, which were previously covered under the village. So things like liability insurance, the annual public meeting, newspaper ads to do with committee business and so on. So that's a new item for them. Firefighting force, one new item is an EAP or employee assistance program for the firefighters. An EAP is a confidential service that an individual can call for help with challenges related to workplace stress, which, as we can imagine, can be very significant for first responders. Training and education, no significant change here. Overall, just a slight reduction. Firefighting equipment, the estimate for vehicle fuel has increased due to the much higher prices than a year ago, as well as the sheer number of call-outs our volunteers respond to. More calls is more gas. Insurance has increased with higher rates and an additional vehicle, which is a utility truck. Personal protective equipment. Last year, we started consolidating PPE into one line rather than having 500 line items for all sorts of different things. So that's why that looks a little, that gap is there. There is a large replacement for helmets and boots scheduled for next year that have reached end of life. In fact, we might be able to get some of the helmets purchased before the end of the fiscal. There's also a large replacement of bunker gear scheduled. The department has applied for a grant from the provincial provider fund to hopefully offset this cost. Communication, nothing of note here. Maintenance, again, minimal changes. Building in general, the increase that is shown here is for an improved cleaning service. We've got a proper commercial service starting at the fire hall, just started this week, and moving the cost of the dumpster at the fire hall here that used to be covered under the village budget. Fireboat, this section is essentially parked other than CPI. The inshore boat is getting more use with the fireboat out of commission. Expectations for the fireboat service will factor into the replacement plan, and you will probably see me again not too far off supporting another committee member about that. The separate fireboat will be closed and rolled into the apparatus reserve. Capitals, this is the remainder of the fee for the engineering and architecture consultants that are working on the new fire station pre-design, who were selected by a rigorous RFP process led by our partners at the municipality. And I want to thank certainly Dan Pittman and the team who did the review for their really fantastic work on that. Other consulting includes anticipated needs for surveying, land transfer, public communications, etc. Breathing apparatus equipment is scheduled for replacement, and a new swiftwater rescue item would outfit 4 to 5 firefighters. And with the new developments in terms of flooding, that will be unfortunately probably needed. Reserves. So this is the biggest chunk. So 86% of the projected revenue increase goes into reserves. So fire apparatus, an increase over previous annual deposits, which were made mandatory under the village's reserve fund policy. The operating reserve, the Municipal Government Act requires any surplus from a given year, as you know, to be deposited into reserves. So that amount is TBD until we get to the end of the fiscal. This is a new account, as the fire and village operating reserve was a single account, but the funds are being separated. And I can't even tell you how many hours of that. It's with our auditor right now to check all the figures. Building reserve, there hasn't been a building account for some years. And while we're hopeful there may be federal and provincial funding available for the new fire station, such grants always require a portion to come from the local level as well. We're a couple of years away from breaking ground, but we don't want to waste any time. And that's it. So thank you. Does anyone have questions about any of the numbers?
You did a good job. Any more questions? You were detailed.
Sorry. So how was the 0.94 rate something that you all considered? Was it lower? It's got to meet your requirements. I guess what I'm asking.
It'll meet the requirements for this fiscal year to get some of these new reserves going. We'll just have to see where we are in a year. So that'll be up to the committee to determine what else they want to do.
Does the village commission approve it yet, or are we heard?
They have, they approved it last week.
Somebody prepared to move the approve, so move. Second, discussion. All those in favor? Oh, motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Look
for
forward
your
to
time.
working with you in the future.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, this is the first time in the new system, yeah.
Yes, it is.
Been a long time.
Yeah, just move it over there. Unplugging that right there. Short person, short arm.
Are they ready or are they not? Not ready, okay. So we can move on to first notice amendment to National Committee Procedural Policy.
Yeah, so this is, we've given notice of intention, I believe, for this one. So this is first notice for the amendment to the council and committee procedural policy to change the term of deputy wardens from a 4-year term to, or sorry, from two-year terms to 4 1-year terms.
Anybody have any questions for something here? So this would be final.
This is first notice.
Oh, first. Motion, you would need a motion to do what?
A notice to give first notice. Or,
Motion.
sorry, the motion of the sending back to second.
Yes, I'll move that.
We have a second. Seconder. Second, Derek. Discussion. All those in favor?
Like all the teams.
Opposed? Motion carried. Yeah, it's a little bit. Final notice, 8.2, adoption recommendation facility proposal consultation policy to establish a consultation process for proponents seeking a license for innovative science and economic development Canada to install radio communication facilities in the municipality of Chester. Yeah.
So obviously, we've never had a policy for this before. We did.
Well, we used to, but it's this is different.
Then we brought things.
They used to be part of our land use bylaw.
Yeah.
And,
Now it's something
and
different.
then we amended the land use bylaw to add the CRINS, process in there. And so now, we've created a new standalone policy outside of the land use bylaw. And so once we get approval for that, and there'll be a further, report coming, I believe, on potential amendments. We'll need to make some amendments to the municipal planning strategy and, to accommodate those changes. So this is approval of the policy, the new policy for radio communications facilities.
I'll make a motion. Oh. And the second question, Ella. Second discussion. All those in favor, opposed, motion's carried. Now, the next couple may take a little longer, 15 minutes. So I don't want to do 9.1, 9.2 just yet. Well, just because we've got none.
Gareth looks like he wants to say something.
No.
Oh,
I
I
was gonna say, if we're going to 9.3, that's. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I'm planning, we had 9.3.
Well,
You see, you want to say something.
Yeah, so this was just mentioned, as a result of changing the policy to a municipal policy, we need to make a few tweaks to the municipal planning strategy and the land use bylaw. So I just need direction to start that process.
Need a motion.
That
means.
Motion, direction, I'm comfortable either way, as long as we all agree on it. Does anybody have any objections to moving forward with developing policy?
You're recommending option 1, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Motion to approve option 1.
Second.
I won't go through it all.
No.
And that's it.
Seconder? Gonna say we're gonna go second or.
Sharon's answer.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she always seconds. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. You read them. Yeah,
That's right, correct. Keep on moving.
If we're gonna go on to next report, we need to get a lane here. Okay, we'll bring her in.
$11.2. Council meeting schedule.
Quick one, yeah, while we're waiting for staff to arrive. So these are, yeah, the May and the June schedules, and we have a couple of, conferences in there, so this adjustments proposed to the meeting schedule. Makes sense.
I know that I'm staying longer,
So am I.
I know Alan.
That won't work. I won't go.
So should we cancel the 13th and change the 20th to, council in case we need it?
That would work for now for me. Yeah. But I know I'm staying longer.
I don't know if we want to have one before we go away that week, if necessary. I mean,
It's a long way from now. I mean, if we do need one, we'll just have one.
we could have one before. We need,
I'll be away.
we can do it.
Well, I mean, if something happens that we have to have a meeting, then we'll have one.
Okay, it's evening, I'll be home before.
I haven't actually determined yet. But as long as I haven't figured out how to get the internet over. Today, yeah, we're trying for some foolish no buses, no.
Question on the deck. Do we register ourselves for that? Is that no?
I sent an email yesterday,
Oh, did you?
yeah,
I got my confirmation.
You probably did too, it was an email, I got it yesterday.
I got it yesterday. I didn't see it. It's still early.
Okay, so we're all good with the council meetings as presented.
thank you, yeah.
So that's cancel on 13th.
Yeah, just for now, if we have to do something. we will.
Motion to approve the change and the council for May and.
Okay, seconder?
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor, opposed, motion carried. Morning,
Good morning.
how are you?
Very well, thank you.
9.4, yes. Yeah, you should buy. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. So the report in front of you is here today because we are dealing with a property on Bonds Lake that has a lakefront overlay applying to it. And that is a 20-meter setback that was established in 2020 to provide an opportunity to deal with water quality related to development around many of our lakes in our municipality, to try and establish a vegetative buffer and give some limited flexibility for smaller buildings like boathouses and wharves to be located within the lakefront overlay. Unbeknownst to Mr. Swinimer, the lakefront overlay applied to his property. The building that was there previously was allowed to remain, but once he moved it without a building permit or development permit, that prior permission that he had no longer applied. So he does need to comply with the lakefront overlay today. We've had discussions with Mr. Swinimer about the options that he has available, and those options are included in the report in front of you today. And the reason that these options are set out the way they are is because the Municipal Government Act gives a very prescriptive list of opportunities to the development officer about when the development officer can make changes or vary the permissions. But the lakefront overlay basically indicates that main buildings are not allowed to be located within that 20-meter or 66-foot setback.
So the options that are laid out are around moving the building to comply with bylaw, getting it out of the lakefront overlay, reducing the size of the building or demolishing the building. All of those options have been discussed with Mr. Swinimer.
Do you like any of them?
He is not in favor of those. And although I really empathize with Mr. Swinimer and the situation that he has, the options in this report are the options available for us to consider
Based on the law.
based on the
Not
current
nonsense.
situation. And the other options that are available in the report, if council is interested in allowing the building to stay where it is, it's looking at amending the land use bylaw or the zoning that applies to the property. Those are options 4 and 5 in the report. They're not recommended by staff on the basis that a lot of work was done to establish this lakefront overlay. And if the goals are still valid, then the framework is there for this property and other properties to comply with. However, if council is interested in making some changes and looking at some flexibility, then the amendment could be looked at on a site-specific basis of just applying to Mr. Swinimer's property or more generally applying to other properties. But that would involve another report coming back from staff about an approach of how that should be structured. It would require public consultation, and we've included information in the report about possible timeframes for dealing with both of those situations.
Yeah, I mean, last thing I do want to do is change it, but I find this one of those circumstances where there should be some degree of flexibility just because it's a one-off. It just, if he didn't know he was on somebody else's land, so we moved it over.
Yeah, and I spoke to Harry, and he couldn't make it today because he started a new job.
Yeah.
And I told him that I would advocate for him. And as you mentioned, you just mentioned flexibility, and I think that we got to find a way to, if you look at the map, I mean, this had sat on the land for 50 years. And when it was, he found out he was on somebody else's property. Now, his intention wasn't to move closer to the lake because he wanted to be close to the water or destroy any vegetation, right? As you can see, he moved it right to the edge of his border, and the land is only so wide. And I know bylaws are made to be followed, but there's never a perfect bylaw. And I think, and that's where government gets a bad rap, because we have to be flexible in some way, whether it's, I mean, this is a one-off. How many, I guess, how many cases, and even if he applied, and he acknowledges that it was his fault that he applied for the proper permits to move it. But even if he had, he would still be end up in the same situation, correct?
Potentially, if Mr. Swinimer had applied for the permits, we would have been able to advise him of where the building would have to be located outside the lakefront overlay.
Andre?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about the permit thing because it's irrelevant to the problem. Whether he applied or not, it seems he would have been in the same situation. I think that we need to amend the bylaw to allow, I don't like site-specific spot zoning. I think that we should allow a provision to deal with encroachment issues, which is what this actually is. That makes sense, and it'll make sense if it ever comes up again, I think, probably as well. So I think that should be what we should do personally. Unless I hear otherwise, that's.
Yeah, no, site specific is difficult because then every time somebody walks in the door, you're doing something.
I'm surprised.
I
there's
just
nothing in the
want
NDA
something
that
that
doesn't.
has flexibility and exception, sorry.
What do you mean by encroachment?
Well, there was an encroachment that drove this in the first place.
He was on someone else's land.
Or the building was like.
He didn't know it. I mean, it was camped there 50 years ago. We had a situation in Beach Hill that, when we were, and Gordon can speak on it better than I can, but we had a situation in Beach Hill where a lady's actual house was on, corner of her house was on our land. I mean, and we made it the right thing to do. We gave it to her, fixed her deed up.
Okay, how are you gonna define encroachment? You should help the planner here. How are you gonna define that? You just can't say fix it, encroachment issues, you gotta get a little more.
Well, if you demonstrate an encroachment issue and that's demonstrated by a survey.
Which this is.
You have a survey? I don't see it in the,
Yeah, it's in the package here. It's
That's not certain.
well, not a survey, but I think he had one done.
Would you be done to prepare for sale?
I think he had one done. I think he had a survey done. That's how he discovered it was on the land.
Wasn't on his own property.
He discovered that from the survey.
I mean, if staff have a better idea on how we could approach.
well, they've given us their ideas right here.
Yeah, well, I know, but I mean,
I don't like those ones.
I think we want some ability to have flexibility in exceptional circumstances. How we go about that?
Can I ask a question? Because what's been discussed so far is very specific. It will be only if there's an encroachment issue, but this is broader. So we need,
Well, I don't care which way, I just need.
well, no, but we need that consensus from council to direct staff as to what to bring back.
So like, I know we differ on this probably, but I don't like open-ended things where like we have like a trap door where we can make up our own policy.
Everybody will ask.
Yeah, that's no good. But, you know, there are many regulations and standards, both municipally and provincially, that allow for addressing encroachment issues. I can point to several environmental ones, if you wish, right now. So like, that's not uncommon, and allowing that, I think would deal with this case and other future cases like this that are reasonable to expect we might see in the next, say, 30 years.
So the green is where it was,
Yes.
brown is where it is.
Yeah.
As clarification, brown is where it was. Green. GPS coordinates, but they're not survey accurate. So green is the location where it exists today.
So where's the water is down now?
So the brown is where it's now.
The green is the current location.
Well, it's showing, the green is, so he's moved back, if you're saying it's the green.
Yes.
And he's farther from the water than he was, but he's still closer than the bylaw allows.
Well, this is what I'm saying.
Well, that's what I mean, that's. like-
Yeah, so he actually moved back further. I thought, for looking at the map, because I'm looking at the lake, that reference. So I thought we moved, so he's moved back. So that's another point.
It's better than what?
I mean, there's got to, if you ask 100 people, and I know it's, you know, our bylaw, and you explain the situation to them and said, well, our hands are tied, we can't do anything. What do you think the public would say?
It's crazy.
Absolutely, and this is where government gets a bad rap, because we have to be, as you said, flexible in some fashion.
So let's look at.
No, she said that, I wrote it down, and flexible means what Andre's talking about. Now, I'm very passionate about this issue because I think it's the right thing to do. And if it was in your district, or your district, or your district, or anybody's district, I would feel just as passionate.
Tina.
Thank you. So, this will demonstrate my ignorance here. The entire squiggly lines is the entire, it's all lakes from over, okay. So if he would not have been over the property line and encroaching, he would have been grandfathered in.
That's correct.
If he hadn't moved the building.
Yes, so if he had not been encroaching and over the property line, that cottage would have still, we wouldn't be discussing it because it would be where it was, chickadee boo, everything's fine. Okay, so that I'm gonna digest that. So then what he did was he moved it.
Further away from the lake.
Okay, so I'm gonna digest
But it
that.
doesn't meet the requirement.
Right, but because he was grandfathered, so again, I'm just digesting it, so he was grandfathered in previous. We wouldn't be sitting here, we wouldn't be bothered, we wouldn't be talking about it, everyone would be fine. And because of the survey, he moved it further back from the water. His hands are tied, it's all lakefront zone, lakefront overlay. Okay, no, I'm just digesting that, thank you.
So if we give you directions to go and try to develop a new bylaw which allows for
Amend the
bylaw.
So the direction would be the planning staff.
Yeah.
Yeah, to come back with a report.
I mean, it's some idea of the priority level that the council would like this report brought back.
Look, as long as we don't go and tell them to get out of there and stuff, I don't think it's.
I don't think
Yeah.
it's right.
Yeah.
It's
just, yeah,
Yes,
just don't force.
I mean, the priority, the only priority is
That he knows he doesn't have to move to the end.
he doesn't have to do it. But it limits his sale.
Sam wants to speak.
Sorry. Thank you.
So right now, the direction of the folks on encroachment.
Yes.
But, and this is just, it may be an issue now, but as I understand, you get an existing building within the lakefront overlay, and let's say he wanted to put a deck on the back of the building, but he's still in the lakefront overlay, would you be able to issue the development permit?
The approach that we've taken in the past is to orient the deck away from the lakefront overlay. So if it's partially within, but attached to the building that's within the lakefront overlay, we do allow that because it's farther away from the lake. So that's the approach.
I guess you want to think about other situations where people are within the area, but want to make additions. So they're still within the overlay, but they're not getting any closer.
Correct.
There might be situations, other reasons why they want to move the building. They might want to better site it, but they're going back from it.
Yeah.
They're still within the, would that be a ground? There may be building code or fire safety. They want to get it away from the boundary line. No, it's not, it doesn't encroach, but it's right on the line. And then they want to get it away from the line. Again, not getting any closer. I just think there might be a variety of reasons, besides encroachment, where it might be sensible to move the building, but farther away.
Well, flooding might be one.
Flooding might be one, there's could be a whole bunch of reasons why they're gonna say, the building should be moved. But we're not gonna apply, we'll be better than we are now. I just want to, think we should address that. We're gonna do an amendment, so.
I think that was my point. If I'm understanding, he's moved it further back from the lake.
Yeah.
So it would have been able to make the situation better. In other words, you're non-compliant, but we can make you less non-compliant by moving it back a little bit further. We wouldn't allow me to do that. We had to say, we want you more compliant, you're more likely to flood.
He would have had to apply.
That doesn't make any sense.
He would have had to apply and move the building outside the lakefront overlay.
I can't improve it.
No.
It doesn't make any sense.
No.
You gotta be able to make it better. Oh, it's what we can be.
So I think the amendment should address that.
Oh, I agree with Sam, that's it, I never thought of that, but that's an
Well, flooding would be a great example.
Yeah.
If you want to get it back, you can flood.
Yeah.
Yeah, shoreline starts to, way.
So then what do you?
So, what do we do right now presently under the bylaw if he were to come in and ask for a permit to put a piece on this building or something like, is it all, as long as it's away from the lake, it's okay?
Generally, that's the approach we've used, provided that the building isn't encroaching on a neighboring property and the addition would not encroach. And the addition would be farther away from the lake, but attached to the existing building.
Well, I don't know, you guys think about what Sam says, I don't, I mean, it's complicated, I don't have to tell you that.
But I knew, I never thought of that, if someone came and said, if I have to move it's gonna flood out. So according to your rationale, they'd be in violation, and they would get, and if you had a complaint, which this was a complaint, you didn't drive 3 miles back in the woods because
No.
you had no time to, it's a complaint driven. So if, you know, someone could do that tomorrow, and you wouldn't know about it, but if it came to your attention, someone built a $50,000 investment on moving it back as it was flooded, then you'd have to make a decision then, because you have certain powers to make a decision, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And that's where the flexibility comes in. And you know, I want to make sure that when I talk to anybody, doesn't matter who the resident is, I hear a lot of, you know, we direct staff to do stuff. And then, you know, if they do it, or in this case, this is what's given us is basically a staff decision. And I know that's, and it's on.
We made the bylaw.
I know we made the bylaw, but there's gotta be flexibility.
But she only has the flexibility outlined in the MGA, and the MGA wouldn't give her the ability to do.
And we're talking.
If she wasn't, she'd have used common sense.
Well, that's what
You
I'm.
can't use it.
It's not writing in flexibility. If you want to look at anybody, that's the author of the document. That's what it is.
We didn't give action to each other.
Something we didn't see.
Something that come up. I mean,
Anytime.
like, you do whatever you have to do, I guess.
I think the thing is, anytime someone wants to move a building back away to improve it, it doesn't make sense not to allow them to do it.
Question.
They're making an improvement. They're.
This, you say complaint driven. I know Mr. Swimmer was in and speak to us, and he may have told us that someone had complained. What was
Well, it was in the letter. I read the letter that he received.
what was the complaint?
I didn't receive the complaint, and complaints are confidential, so I don't have the ability to share that. And I actually don't know who the complainant is.
It was
I
in the
understand in
report.
this case, it was an anonymous complaint,
It was,
What did the complaint say?
that it was moved without a permit.
That was the basis of the complaint. Not that was there a complaint of an encroachment?
I don't know, I didn't.
Yeah, just move with it.
Jeez.
Move further away from the lake with a permit.
Yeah.
We just plain move.
Did it block someone's view or something? I mean, but they're.
No, he moved it. The reason he moved it is because he wanted to put it for sale. And when they did the
I was
survey,
wondering why someone would complain.
I don't.
I'd like to know the basis of it. There's something here.
obviously, it's probably a personal issue.
Yeah. These are the ones playing around or something.
Well, we don't know that.
No, but I mean,
I think the nature of the complaint may not go away.
Well, it doesn't matter as long as he's complying with the law.
He's not.
We will be if we change it.
We're gonna change it in a year, 2 years.
well, we
All
will.
we're doing is not enforcing it until we get Summers.
So we're making a conscious decision not to enforce our bylaw.
Just while the amendment process is underway, because we are bound to comply with the bylaw.
Yeah. So I just want to put it on the record.
Okay.
I still want to know the basis of the complaint. I mean,
Um,
I'll go
If I
back to
may,
the original one.
one further item that we had put in, option 5 was around the fee. And whether council would like Mr. Schmidt to pay to start that process, or whether that would be covered by the municipality, because I understand for general amendments affecting multiple properties, sometimes one individual does pay to start the process. Other times council has decided that it would be covered by.
I
the
think it's us
municipality.
who wants the bylaw change.
Well, I think just because, and for the simple reason of the things that Sam brought up, which we would have never thought of. Really,
So I say,
so while we're doing it, yeah, absolutely.
okay.
So we've indicated in the report that there will be a follow-up report from staff about all the options available for dealing with the amendment,
Yeah.
and that will start
And
them.
if you can think of something better than we did.
Yeah,
Let us know.
absolutely.
So we're clear though, what the scope of what we're talking about so far is just to deal with an encroachment or to serve some sort of hazard.
Yes.
Or improving.
I think it's improving.
Improving the situation.
Yeah, and it has to be an element of the move.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Airplane.
That's what I assume, that's what I'm trying to get us to that point.
Thanks, Sam. You know, that makes sense. I mean, you gotta look forward to the third year. We'll go up 4 feet. And someone's there and, exactly. Yeah, good point. We should have been a little more.
Okay, so we're moving on to 7.2, apparently they're here, we're gonna be live.
You know, that is so much. And then they come back and some. And then, yeah. And I was reading that. Because I have to do this. She actually did that.
So, please stand by.
Yeah, sorry, it's me, I'm just trying to get all the shit.
Yeah.
So, please stand by.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Just as an introduction, we've invited, some folks from Build Nova Scotia to come and give us an update on, the cell service project that they're working on. I know that council has written several letters and, regarding the quality of cell service, and I'm hearing myself. You have to mute that one, sorry.
So they're gonna give us an update on where we are.
Exactly that means. Sorry?
That's you?
That's me, it's echoing, you have to mute the. Hello, they're muted. Can you hear us?
We can hear you now.
Okay.
There you go.
So we just gave a brief introduction, and let council know that you are going to give us a presentation on the project you're working on for cell service. So I'll turn it over to you to introduce yourselves and begin your presentation.
Great, thank you. So my name is Kevin Klein. I'm a project manager with Build Nova Scotia. And we've prepared a quick slide deck for you today, but I'll let my other two team members here introduce themselves. Dave?
Hi, everyone. Dave Finlayson, corporate strategist working on the cell and fiber programs.
And Hillary?
Hi, Hillary here, and I also work on the internet and the cell projects with Build.
Great, thanks guys. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here. We've got a brief slide presentation that can kind of go through some updates on the cell project and some other aspects of what we do here. And then we can have a few moments for questions at the end here. So let me see if I can share my screen. One second. Share. All right. Can everyone see my screen okay now? Thumbs up? Okay, great. All right. So a little bit about who Build Nova Scotia is, if you're not familiar with what we do. So we're a Crown corporation. We do a lot of the unwanted projects. I think we get a lot of crazy projects here at Build Nova Scotia, including like Boat Harbor cleanup, the Internet for Nova Scotia initiative. We look after the Cell project, as we'll get into later. We look after the Halifax waterfront, the Lunenburg waterfront. We're into healthcare infrastructure development now, so we do quite a bit of things here at Build. So in this past October, the government announced the Cellular for Nova Scotia program, where we're going to expand the cell footprint throughout the province and fill in some of the gaps. And Build was tapped to actually lead this project, to design the program, to go through the RFP process and dismiss and manage the whole program from end to end. So we started off, there's $47.3 million that was put into a fund, basically, to an initial investment for this project. We'll sort of see how it goes, if we can stretch that money as far as possible, and we'll see how that goes. The way we've structured this project is it's a two-phased approach. So the first phase, which we've closed on now, so we launched an initial RFP, and that was to invite telecoms to attach cell equipment to existing towers. So any of the existing trunk mobile radio towers that the province currently owns, it was kind of an easy way to get the telcos to respond quickly to this project. There wouldn't be any new land lease requirements. There's no build for new towers, no power requirements, because the power is already at these towers. So these are the existing towers that exist throughout the province, and simply have the telcos come in and attach their cell equipment to these towers. It's not going to be a complete coverage program, but it's a good way to get a quick start. We're going to try and get the initial phase substantially complete, hopefully by the end of this year. That's sort of the goal. And once we get so right now where we are in the initial phase is the RFP is closed. we're in the evaluation and negotiation phase now. Once we know the coverage of what we can get out of the first RFP, then we'll launch the second RFP. The second RFP will be basically a greenfield project where this will be new cell towers throughout the province to sort of fill in the remaining gaps. And that will involve, new land leases, building of new towers, roadways to get into these towers, power to these towers, and of course the equipment and everything else. So that's going to be phase two. There's also a separate $3.3 million that was invested for additional 4 new TMR2 towers throughout the province. So there's some areas of the TMR2 network that just didn't have coverage. Like Greenfield is one that's sort of close by to where you folks are. So there'll be a new tower going there relatively soon. So as far as goals of the program, so we're trying to reach 99% coverage with basic cell service. So basic cell service would be your ability to make a phone call and do text messaging. So trying to get to 99% coverage of the sort of populated areas. So that would be, where people live, where people work, and where they travel. So like major roadways. And then we want to extend the standard definition service to 95% of those areas. So standard definition would give you the ability to browse the internet, social media, emails, that sort of thing. And then high definition, we'd like to see that pushed out to at least 85% of those areas as well. And high definition would be like video streaming, more rich content on the internet and so on. So how did we get here? So back in 2022, we commissioned a gap study. We contracted a third-party provider called Farpoint. They're actually a Scottish company, and they did an analysis on where the gaps are in the cell network. And they do this kind of in a couple of different ways. They do a desktop analysis. So they basically take the existing towers and coverage models from all the major cell providers in the province. So Bell, Eastlink, Rogers, plug them into a software tool, a proprietary software tool that they have, and that will give you a predicted coverage model of where the coverage currently is at those different levels as well, like standard definition and basic and so on. And then from there, if we've got this desktop model, from there we include drive testing with that. So we actually take a box, you put it in a car, and it's got a series of antennas that sit on the roof. And in this box, there's SIM cards for all those providers, and you physically drive around the back roads of the province and measure the cell signal from all those different providers, and then it gives you a really good idea of where the gaps are, where the weak signal is, where there's no signal and whatnot. And so we've completed that, and that's sort of the basis of where the gaps are and where we're trying to fill. Yeah, there's also a note here on the Internet for Nova Scotia initiative. So through the INSEE project, we've built out, I think it's roughly around 12,000 kilometers of brand new fiber optic network throughout the province, and that should help us get new towers, because most of these towers are connected back to the main switching stations via fiber. Some of them use microwaves, like Rogers more uses microwaves than Bell and Eastlink. But having that fiber sort of close by to those new towers should help the business case to get those new towers erected, and they won't have to lay as much fiber optic network due to the INSEE initiative. Yeah, so I mentioned before, like, where we are in the process. So we've completed the RFP for round one. That's all closed. We're going through the negotiation process now. We need to complete that. And just get the coverage details of exactly what's going to be covered with this initial phase, And then, then we'll make some announcements and so on. And once we get that piece done, then a new RFP will follow up. We're hoping that the second RFP will follow up probably within the next month or so. We're just getting the final details of phase one sort of finalized, and then we can move to that. So we've stood up a web page there. You can see the URL on the bottom. It's pretty sparse right now. There's not a whole lot of information, but once this phase one closes, we'll have coverage details, timelines, where we can expect these, again, the coverage model, which communities will be impacted, timelines, the winner of RFP one and so on. It'll be much more information, how to get in contact with us and so on. And I think another thing we'd like to do is we've got a number of emails from residents who have sort of volunteered their land, said, look, I've got a good chunk of land that seems to be up on a hill here. And, would you guys be interested in using that for a potential cell tower? So we're going to come up with a way for a more clean way, I think, for residents to communicate with us if they do have land that might be suitable for future cell towers and whatnot. But we'll get to that. That's in development now. Yeah, so I guess a quick little note here on the INSEA initiative. This has been going on for a number of years now, but we're getting pretty close to the end of this thing. As of this month, we're at just under 95,000 homes and businesses that we've connected across the province. So we're at about 98% coverage throughout the province now, with the initial goal of 95. So we're doing quite well. We do have the satellite rebate option. So for those folks that are in a project area that's not completed yet, we've offered a rebate on the upfront cost for satellite services through Starlink. And any of those folks that are just outside of a project area that they might be on a seasonal cottage or whatnot, where we don't have terrestrial coverage, we offer that same satellite option as well. So it's coming along, and we're in the challenging phases of this project now, where the majority of the build that's left over is in Cape Breton. There's a lot of failed infrastructure up there. The poles or the telephone poles, all the fibers got to string along these poles, and a lot of these poles are in poor shape. So they've got to be re-anchored or replaced. So there's that's a problem area for Bell, some of the other telcos. So it's that's a bit of a slug. It's the hard ones now that we're trying to finish off, but we expect to have the vast majority of the remaining locations finished by the end of this year. This is a bit of an interesting one. So was it last month, the month before last? There's a series of meetings with the CRTC to talk about unbundling of last mile networks to allow competitors onto these networks. So, for example, now you can buy resold services of Eastlink through providers like Citywide and Purple Cow, like they're a discount reseller, and the same sort of service offering. The CRTC is proposing the same sort of unbundling of services with fiber optic networks, so that those resellers can can resell Bell's network. Of course, the big telcos don't want that to happen because it's going to erode some of their businesses. The smaller guys want this to happen because they want to be able to resell Bell's network. We were there as basically our vice president, Jonathan, was there in front of the CRTC as basically an advocate for the consumer to say, like we want to see more competition, we want to see prices go down and so on. Other things like, we want to see better communication through emergencies with 911, as we saw through some of these hurricanes that, services went down and the residents didn't know what was going on. So we want to see the telcos communicate better when there's issues like that. And, making internet and cell service essential, basically. I mean, everybody relies on these services now. So yeah, he was there as an advocate on the consumer side. And that's it. That's our quick little slide deck. Any questions from anyone?
Any questions? Except those on the, any questions on the presentation? Anyone?
I guess I will. And for me, I think it's very interesting. Of course. So one of the first things you mentioned was that you guys fitted out a car with all kinds of sensors and whatever you need to determine signal strength from the various carriers, and you took this sort of Ghostbusters car and drove around all the roads to sort of, I guess, create a bit of a map of where the coverage was weak and where it was strong. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. So it's called a drive test. And so you basically have cell receivers from all the major carriers, and you physically drive around these roads, and it takes a measurement every so many seconds of how strong the signal strength is, and from that you can build out a map. There's GPS locators on the vehicle as well, so you can basically plot a map, coordinates on a map, and with those signal strengths. So we have that. That's basically part of the report.
I understand that. It makes sense. I have a similar map in my mind, actually, for TELUS. So the report, is that map public? Can we look at that map? How does that work?
The report is, there's a redacted version of the report that's out there. Maybe we can send that off to the group there once we're finished here.
I think it'd be very interesting to people.
Yeah, know the map.
To know like where it is weak and where it is not, and especially in one carrier related to the other, it may actually inform some purchasing decisions. I would think.
Yeah, the way they do it is they look at they'll look at each carrier, and then they'll look at sort of they call it the best operator, like who's got the strongest signal in a certain area. So I mean, you're right. I mean, if you knew that Rogers had a better signal than Bell in that certain area, you might choose to purchase Rogers. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else questions? You're working on the product. You're working on it. That's all I can follow.
Yeah, I'm grateful for the update, actually.
I can only say that I have, if everybody else has no questions. I have a camp out at the end of Lacey Mines Road on Clark's Lake. I have all but no signal, and I don't want you to fix it.
Right.
I don't want my phone ringing when
That's an easy one.
Turn your phone off.
Yeah, then somebody just complained because I didn't have it on. Yeah. Now I can tell them I don't have the signal. Anyway, thank you very much. Take care.
Okay, guys. Thank you.
Okay, Sylvia, we'll do you because it should be quick.
Okay.
Good. Well, it's all over. I'm thinking of it, so let's put it that.
It will be.
Then we'll have, right.
We got a new private road name in Fox Point. The one property owner has proposed the name of Shoreline Bluff Lane. It's a unique road name in Nova Scotia, and we have no objections from the fire department or public works.
Anybody got an issue with naming it that? Go through.
I'll second that motion for Mr. Floyd Shepherd. Deputy Warden.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried.
I think Sylvia also has.
I do have another one. Hi.
Oh, 11.4. Oh, yes. Okay. Well, we'll do that too then.
Okay. This one is from the Dynasty Court Owners Association for a new fee for street maintenance. They are a registered association with the Nova Scotia Joint Stock Registry. They have submitted a budget outlining that they'd like the per lot method used to calculate the fee as described in our bylaw. All 100% of the affected property owners have signed the petition. They're listed there in the report. In the attachment, there's the location map, their certificate of association, and their budget and their annual meeting minutes. And at this time, staff recommend that council accept their petition package to establish the fee they've shown that they've met the criteria listed in the bylaw.
Motion to approve. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. We're gonna take a short break. You won't be using money.